In this lesson, we will go over the grammar for Caesar's Bellum Gallicum 431. Ad Caesar, etsi nondum eorum consilia cognoverat, tamen et ex eventu navium suarum, et ex eo quod obsides dare intermiserant, fore id quod accidit suspicabatur. Let's start with the framework here. Caesar is our subject. Our main verb, suspicabatur, Caesar suspected, Caesar surmised, imperfect, followed by an indirect statement. The infinitive in that indirect statement is fore, futurum esse. Caesar surmised that something was going to be, was going to happen, would happen. Immediately after our subject, we have a clause, although, concessive, etsi, although, etsi nondum eorum consilia cognoverat. The verb here, cognoverat, is pluperfect, had learned, or simply knew. Although he had not yet learned their plans, although he did not yet know their plans, nevertheless, tamen. So tamen brings us back to the main clause after the concessive clause. In the next few phrases, Caesar gives the reasons, our author gives the reasons why Caesar, our general, suspected or surmised. Et ex eventu navium suarum, et ex eo quod obsides dare intermiserant. So first of all, ex eventu navium suarum, both from the issue, the fate, the outcome of their ships, or of his ships here, and et ex eo quod obsides dare intermiserant, from the fact that they had stopped giving hostages. Intermiserant, they had neglected, they had stopped. Dare, complementary infinitive after that. They had neglected to give, or they had stopped giving. Obsides, accusative direct object of dare. Just take a quick look at ex eo quod. Out of that thing that. Here, from the fact that. Quod here is like because. It introduces a substantive clause, and eo therefore can best be translated as the fact that. From the fact that they had neglected to give hostages. Then, our indirect statement, he was surmising, he was suspecting, id quod accidit, that which happened, fore would happen. So, the main infinitive fore is an indirect statement. Its subject, its accusative subject is id. He surmised that it would happen. And then id is explained by the relative clause quod accidit, which happened. He surmised that that thing which happened would happen. In other words, he knew in advance what was going to happen, which did in fact happen. The whole thing once again, ad Caesar, etsi nondum eorum consilia cognoverat, tamen, et ex eventu navium suarum, et ex eo quod obside stare intermiserant, fore id quod accidit suspicabatur. But Caesar, although he did not yet know their plans, nevertheless, both from the fate of his ships and from the fact that they had stopped giving hostages, suspected that that which happened would happen. Itaque ad omnes casus subsidia comparabat. And so he was preparing help for all cases, for all eventualities. Comparabat has still Caesar as its subject, subsidia, neuter plural, accusative direct object of comparabat, casus, accusative object of the preposition ad omnes casus. Now, how was he preparing? For nam et frumentum ex agris quotidie in castra conferebat, et quae gravissime adflictae erant naves, earum materia atque aere ad reliquas reficiendas utebatur, et quae ad eas res erant usui ex continenti comportari iubebat. Notice that he's doing multiple things, both something having to do with grain and something having to do with ships. So, he was bringing grain daily from the fields into the camp, quotidie, every day. Going forward here, the framework of this is materia atque aere utebatur. Utebatur, a main verb, deponent, he was using, making use of, followed by the ablative materia and the ablative aere. He was using the material, the wood, and the metal. The wood and the metal. We can expand on that. Earum, the word immediately preceding materia, refers to ships, earum navium. He was using the wood and metal of those ships which, quae, introduces the relative clause, quae gravissime adflictae erant naves, which ships had been damaged, adflictae erant, or simply were damaged, but had been damaged, it's more precise, gravissime, most seriously. So he was using the wood and the metal of the ships, which ships had been most seriously damaged. He was using it ad reliquas reficiendas, for repairing the rest. And here we have reliquas, accusative object of the preposition ad, for the rest, for the remaining naves. But notice also the gerundive reficiendas, agreeing with reliquas. So in a very literal way, this means for the remaining ships having to be repaired. In English, we say for repairing the remaining ships. Caesar uses the gerundive construction. We translate that in English with a gerund for the purpose of repairing the rest of the ships. And finally, quae ad eas res erant usui ex continenti comportari iubebat. So, iubebat, he was ordering for those things which were of use for these matters to be brought over from the continent. So here, a relative clause, the things which quae erant, the things which were, usui here is a dative of purpose, of use, for use, and ad eas res, useful for what? For those matters, that is, for fixing ships. Ex continenti comportari iubebat. Here, he was ordering that these things be brought from the continent. So, quae is nominative relative pronoun subjective erant. Understand an antecedent, which is not stated here, but something like ea quae, and that ea is the accusative subject of the infinitive comportari. He was ordering for them to be brought. Let's read the whole thing one more time. Nam et frumentum ex agris cotidie in castra conferebat, et quae gravissime ad flictae erant naves, earum materia atque aere ad reliquas reficiendas utebatur, et quae ad eas res erant usui ex continenti comportari iubebat. For he was both bringing grain from the fields into the camps daily, and he was using the wood and metal of those ships which had been most seriously damaged. He was using that wood and metal for repairing the remaining ships. And the things which were of use for those activities, he was ordering for those things to be brought over from the continent. Then our chapter ends as follows. Itaque, cum sumo studio a militibus administraretur, duodecim navibus amicis, reliquis ut navigari satis commode posset e fecit. Let's do this section by section. And so, therefore, while it was being managed with the greatest eagerness, with the greatest zeal by the soldiers, administraretur, it was being managed. Things were being managed. This is impersonal. We can just say things were being managed, or that was being managed by the soldiers. Since that was being managed by the soldiers, ablative absolute, 12 ships having been lost, perhaps although 12 ships had been lost, then we get to our main clause, effecit. He brought it about that. He made it so that, and ut is a substantive clause of result after effecit. What did he bring about? He brought about the following, that it was possible to sail very easily, sufficiently easily, with the remaining navibus, reliquis navibus. Navigari, notice that is passive, again, an impersonal passive construction. He brought it about that it was possible to sail very easily with the remaining ships. And that ends the passage.